Hi Rona, hi Rich, hi Jean, hi Erin, hi Liz.
Please try to know. I have a place to sleep.
It is.
Yeah, I thought you got Yeah.
Well, they can't not. But the thing is,
Yeah. We begin on page 2 of the supplements.
Olam chesed yibaneh, yadadai, dai, dai, dadadai, dai. 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 I will build this world from love. Yadadai, dai, dai, dadadai, dai. And you must build this world from love. Yadadai, dai, dai, dadadai, dai. And if we build this world from love, yadadai, dai, dai, dadadai, dai, then God will build this world from love. Yadadai, dai, dai, dadadai, dai. Olam chesed yibaneh, 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 yadadai, dai, dai, dadadai, dai.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome everybody to our services tonight. Welcome to everybody who is with us on YouTube. Just a reminder that the texts that we're using tonight are available in a separate document. That link went out in the email that gave you the link for services tonight as well. So if you want those texts, please feel free to click on that link and access them separately that way. Olam Chesed Yibaneh, what a great song, what a great spirit for Shabbat. On Shabbat, we put aside the tension and stress of the week, particularly a week full of storms and anxiety. We put that away and we build a world of love, coming together, being with each other, sharing with our community, whether here or around the world, in building the love of Shabbat. And so we welcome Shabbat. We start to bring Shabbat in by lighting our Shabbat candles on page 301 of the Siddur. It's my pleasure to invite Liz Bornstein to lead us.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Thank you, Liz. Page 302. These lights we kindle are a sign that Shabbat has arrived and a reminder that we can wrest light from darkness, that hope can be kindled even in despair. May my life be warmed, O God, by the divine light of your compassion. May I be strengthened by my trust in you. May these lights also serve as a reflection of the love I share with those who surround me as we welcome Shabbat together. We turn back to page 13 as we welcome the Shabbat angels of peace and joy. Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
When we think about God creating the world with love, when we think about God as creator, it is not just the world, not just this planet, it is the entire universe and all that exists. On page 16, we find the words to Psalm 96, 4 lines from the bottom in the Hebrew, 6 lines in English. The words mean, "Let the heavens rejoice, let the earth be glad, let the sea and all it contains exult. Yismechu hashamayim."
Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, ותגל הארץ. יהירם הים, יהירם הים, יהירם הים ומלואו. יהירם הים, יהירם הים, יהירם הים ומלואו. ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ.
And now we are ready to welcome the Shabbat bride on page 21. Lecha Dodi, come my beloved, to greet the bride.
Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, ishmiyanu el hamiyuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shem u'tiferet ve'litila. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki hi mekor haberacha. Merosh mikedem nesucha, sof maaseh b'machshavat tchila. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, hitoreri, kiva orech kumiori. Uri, Uri, shir daberi kevod Adonai, alayich nigla. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'b'tzola. Toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, boi chala. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nekabela.
We continue on page 27, Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitgadal ve'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, ve'amad divrach yirutei, ve'amlich malchutei, b'chayeichon uvyomeichon, u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Bagala, bagala, uvizman kariv, v'yimeru, amen. Yehi shemei Rabba mevarach, le'olam u'lam me'omaya, yitbarach. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemei dekudesha barichu. Le'elamin kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, Da'amiran be'alma v'yimeru, amen.
And on page 5 in the supplement, Am I Awake, leading into Baruch Hu.
Yadidai-dai-dai, 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 yadidai-dai-dai. Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, le'olam va'ed. Yadidai-dai-dai, 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 yadidai-dai-dai.
Can be seated. And let's continue on page 29 in the English at the bottom of the right-hand side. Your love has embraced us always in wilderness and promised land, in good times and in bad. Night and day your Torah sustains us, reviving the spirit, delighting the heart, informing the soul, opening the eyes, granting us a glimpse of eternity. Because of your love, we shall embrace Torah night and day, in devotion and delight. Beloved are you, Adonai, whose Torah reflects your love.
Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu, b'shokbeinu uvkumeinu, nasiyah b'chukecha. ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגע יומם ולילה. אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha. Ve'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha. V'shinatam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha v'derech u'v'shochbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha.
Page 31 and the 6th line from the top.
Leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim le'Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem. Amen.
Turn back in the supplements to page 7, celebrating our liberation. Nothing can compare.
Nothing can compare. Nothing can compare. Nothing can compare. Nothing can compare. Standing on the other side of the sea of reeds, I'm beginning to believe we really can be free. Walking on the ocean floor like walking on the air. Nothing can compare with this. Nothing can compare. Micha mocha ba'elim Adonai. Micha mocha nedar b'kodesh Nora tehilot Hosei pele Nora tehilot Hosei pele. malchutecha ra'u banecha bokei hayam lifnei Moshe zeh Eli anu ve'amru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Nothing can compare, 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 nothing can compare.
Our evening services include a prayer asking God to watch over us at night, to bring us out of the dark, back into the light, in life and peace again. Page 33. Let's join in the English translation on the top of the left-hand side before we sing the Hebrew. Help us, Adonai, to lie down in peace and awaken us again, our sovereign, to life. Spread over us your shelter of peace. Guide us with your good counsel. Save us because of your mercy. Shield us from enemies and pestilence, from starvation, sword, and sorrow. Remove the evil forces that surround us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, O God, who watches over us and delivers us, our gracious and merciful ruler. Guard our coming and our going. Grant us life and peace now and always. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Praised are you, Adonai, who spreads the shelter of peace over us, over all God's people, Israel, and over Jerusalem. On the right-hand side, the Hebrew, this version starts with the first line of the Hebrew, then part 2 picks up in the 6th line where the box is.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu le'shalom v'hamidenu malkeinu le'chayim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu le'shalom v'hamidenu malkeinu le'chayim. Ushmor tzeitenu uvoenu lechayim u'shalom me'ata v'yad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu le'shalom v'hamidenu malkeinu le'chayim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu le'shalom v'hamidenu malkeinu le'chayim.
We turn to page 35B as we continue with the Amidah. We'll start together on page 35B and then continue individually from there through page 38 if you wish to follow the liturgy of the Siddur, or in our own hearts and souls if we prefer those words and those prayers. When you've had as much time as you'd like for your private prayers, you may be seated. We begin by rising together on page 35B.
Adonai safatai tiftach ufi ki tehilatecha. Adonai safatai tiftach ufi ki tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot, U'Mevi Goel Livnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Ufoked U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Abraham Ufoked Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye Metim Atah Rab Lehoshia, Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye Metim Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Memit Umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'emanat al hachayot metim, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hametim, Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, U'kadoshim b'chol yom yahaleluch Selah, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Ose shalom bimromav uya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom bimromav uya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom bimromav uya'aseh shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav uya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav uya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav uya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru. Amen.
We turn our thoughts now to our loved ones and friends who are ill, those who are struggling physically or spiritually or emotionally. Tonight in our congregational family, we think particularly of Phyllis Burke, Lou Berman, Chris Brody, Arthur Campbell, Mike Cohen, Matthew Delano, Jonathan Gardner, David Glazer, Diane Lobel Holland, Justin Israel, Rose Jones, Chris Leahy, Joni Mayer, Nancy Mayer, Thomas McDermott, Pat Pelletier, Hannah Basia Rausch, Neil Rausch, Iris Sherman, Steve Walensky, Yonina bat David HaKohen V'Sara, Devorah bat Yaakov V'Shirley. If there's someone for whom you are particularly concerned tonight, we invite you to say that person's name aloud now. We hold in our hearts all of our friends and loved ones who are ill as we join in our prayer for healing, Mishaberach, on the inside back cover of the Siddur.
Mishaberach Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We turn to page 148. And let's join together in the prayer for our country. Our God and God of our ancestors, we ask your blessings for our country, for its government, for its leaders and advisors, and for all who exercise just and rightful authority. Teach them insights from your Torah, that they may administer all affairs of state fairly, that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom may forever abide in our midst. Creator of all flesh, bless all the inhabitants of our country with your Spirit. May citizens of all races and creeds forge a common bond in true harmony, to banish hatred and bigotry, and to safeguard the ideals and free institutions that are the pride and glory of our country. May this land under your providence be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all people in peace and freedom, helping them to fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they experience war anymore. And let us say, Amen. This is the last Shabbat of the month in the Jewish calendar. A new month begins this coming week. There's a special blessing that we say to welcome the month that begins this week. We find it on page 150. Let's join together. May it be your will, Adonai, our God and God of our ancestors, to reawaken in us joy and blessing in the month ahead. Grant us a long life, a peaceful life with goodness and blessing, sustenance and physical vitality, a life of reverence and piety, a life free from shame and reproach, a life of abundance and honor, a reverent life guided by the love of Torah, a life in which our worthy aspirations will be fulfilled. Amen.
May God, who wrought miracles for our ancestors, redeeming them from slavery to freedom, redeem us soon, and gather our dispersed from the four corners of the earth in the fellowship of the entire people Israel. And let us say,
Amen.
Amen. It's the custom to announce the new month with a melody associated with the month. So perhaps you will recognize this one. Rosh Chodesh Kislev Yeh b'yom shishi Haba aleinu V'al kol Yisrael l'tova. The new month of Kislev will begin on Thursday evening. May it hold blessing for us and all the people Israel.
I suppose it was either that or I had a little dreidel.
Could have been a lot of things.
Yechadshehu HaKadosh Baruch Hu Aleinu v'al kol amo Beit Yisrael l'chayim u'l'shalom l'sason u'l'simcha l'shua u'l'nechama v'nomar Amen. Together, may the Holy One bless this new month for us and for all God's people, the house of Israel, with life and peace, joy and gladness, deliverance and consolation. And let us say, Amen. This past Wednesday was the third anniversary of the attack at Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, when, as you may remember, 11 Jews were murdered during services that Shabbat morning. But that violence did not take place in a vacuum. A year earlier, in August of 2017, the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, featured white supremacists marching with swastikas and other Nazi symbols as they chanted, "Jews will not replace us." During those demonstrations, Heather Heyer was killed and numerous others were injured. The hate expressed in Charlottesville foreshadowed the shooting in Pittsburgh, as well as the one the following April in Poway, California. So perhaps it is appropriate that this week, as we marked the yahrzeit of the Pittsburgh victims, that a trial began in Charlottesville, seeking to hold the leaders and organizers of Unite the Right accountable for their extremist actions. Jury selection started on Monday, opening arguments were held yesterday, and the prosecution's first witness was called today. The plaintiffs are supported by an organization called Integrity First for America, which describes itself as, quote, a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization dedicated to holding those accountable who threaten longstanding principles of our democracy, including our country's commitment to civil rights and equal justice, unquote. The plaintiffs are members of the Charlottesville community. They include parents, students, a Christian minister, and others who peacefully protested when white supremacists invaded their hometown. They were specifically targeted on the basis of their race, religion, and ethnicity, or because they stood up for the safety and civil rights of others. They have sued 24 prominent white supremacists, neo-Nazis, and hate groups that planned, promoted, and executed the violent acts in Charlottesville. I don't want to do the defendants the honor of mentioning their names, but they include, quote, a white nationalist who led the organizing efforts, a white nationalist who believes in ethnic cleansing, a white nationalist who said, of course we look up to men like Adolf Hitler, and the man who drove the car that killed Heather Heyer, as well as hate groups like the Traditionalist Worker Party, Identity Europa, and the League of the South, unquote. According to IFA, this lawsuit is, quote, the only current legal effort to take on the vast leadership of the violent white nationalist movement. It sends a message to every hate group in the country. Americans will not give in to violence and hate. We will defend the dignity and equality of all people, and we will ensure this never happens again, unquote. An interesting and important facet of the trial is that it is not a criminal suit. It is a civil suit, charging the defendants with the unlawful violation of the plaintiff's civil rights and asking for extensive financial damages that, if granted, would significantly diminish or perhaps even bankrupt these organizations' ability to fund themselves. So with that background, I want to share with you most of a letter that the rabbi of Congregation Beth Israel, the Reformed congregation in Charlottesville, sent to his congregation this week. He put the trial and the issues that it raises in an important and powerful context. Don't have quite enough for everybody, so I'll ask you to share. Is everybody at least able to see one? Okay. Dear friends, I write this as the Sines versus Kessler trial commences. This long-awaited lawsuit seeks to hold the organizers of the deadly 2017 Unite the Right rally accountable for their actions. Bone-chilling evidence will be presented in this trial that will make us realize how close we came to experiencing an even greater tragedy than the death of Heather Heyer and the wounding of so many others. The IFA legal team has done a fantastic job amassing the evidence in the defendants' own words of their hateful ideology, as well as the extent of the premeditation involved in their plan to carry out violence at their Unite the Right rally. Forget the fig leaf of Southern heritage or statues. Charlottesville was chosen as a gathering place for the violent fringe of the alt-right to showcase their ideology and to recruit others to it. On the backside, Amy Spatalnik, IFA's executive director, who is also the granddaughter of Holocaust survivors, helps us understand the intersectional role that anti-Semitism plays in the ideology of these white ethno-nationalists. Quote, this trial will outline the ways in which white supremacy, anti-Semitism, racism, and xenophobia all intersect. It will show the ways in which anti-Semitism fueled the white supremacy and racism and xenophobia. It will show how their ideas of the Great Replacement, in which Jews are supporting Black, Brown, Asian, refugee, immigrant, and other communities in the supposed replacement of the white race, is exactly what we saw in Charlottesville, exactly what we're seeing seep into the mainstream now through various right-wing pundits and politicians. And that will certainly be quite clear as we explain the racial animus behind this conspiracy. I have been asked if this trial will bring some closure to the traumatic events of August 11th and 12th, 2017. I am afraid the answer is no. Why? Because the reach of hateful conspiracy theories and the number of people who ascribe to them have only grown. It was this Great Replacement ideology that motivated the person who murdered 11 people at Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh 3 years ago this week, as well as others who direct their violence at immigrants and Muslims and people of color. More and more people are willing to believe counterfactual versions of events, where cynical political operatives create imaginary enemies and promote theories of powerful secret conspiracies in an effort to animate and enrage those who they think will support them. There will be closure when we figure out as an American people how to combat these trends, when we get some clarity about what draws people to these false theories and the underlying dynamics that allow for the popularization of these ideas. We need to figure out ways to build the kind of a society that will resist this kind of thinking without demonizing our opponents, but instead addressing the underlying problems that have created this particular moment in our history. The events that took place on our streets in Charlottesville marked the beginning of a larger conversation in the American Jewish community. It forced us to think again about the stories we have been telling ourselves, about the sense of about the sense of security to which many of us who are white felt entitled, even as violence against other racial and religious minorities continued to be an ongoing feature of our current moment. And to recognize the paradox that a community may at the same time feel both privileged and precarious. Privileged in terms of our relationship to the power structures that continues to replicate white supremacy, but also vulnerable and targeted in various ways by those who are fighting tenaciously to maintain that structure. We need to be wise enough to avoid talking in broad generalities about Jews or blacks or immigrants, especially because many in our community are at the same time Jewish, people of color, and immigrants. And we must resist the temptation to see all criticism of the Jewish community and its concerns through the lens of anti-Semitism, even as we speak the truth that there has been an unmistakable increase in anti-Semitic incidents over the past few years. And perhaps most important, our firsthand experience in Charlottesville with the vehemence and the violence of white supremacy has only reaffirmed our responsibility to remain engaged and even step up our efforts as individuals and as a community to understand and resist the ongoing systemic racial injustices that still call out for bold initiatives and real solutions. Finally, let us also remember the incredible outpouring of support from people in our community and outside of it. The people who sent checks and food and cards and letters, who brought flowers to our doorsteps and who let us know that they too were horrified by what happened here. People who did not want us to feel alone and who promised that they would not abandon us. These ordinary actions should strengthen our hope that we as a nation can turn the tide in a better direction. And I would add to that list IFA, taking up the legal cause to try to look for justice within the judicial system as well. It is on that somewhat optimistic and hopeful note that I want to end with a closing observation from this week's Torah portion. This week's portion, called Chaye Sarah, the life of Sarah, which ironically begins with the death of Sarah, is the first one in which God does not appear as an actor or a speaker. People refer to God in the portion, but God does not explicitly do anything this week. Instead, it's all people. And from what we've seen to this point, that should worry us. We haven't seen many stories yet of people being kind to each other. Just last week, we had Sodom and Gomorrah and their brutal abuse of strangers among them. We had Sarah convincing Abraham to expel Hagar and Ishmael into the wilderness. And we had, of course, the binding of Isaac, which may have caused Sarah so much grief that it killed her, according to the Midrash. We have not exactly seen humanity at its best. And yet, fortunately, this portion, even or maybe because it lacks God, contains many moments of humanity caring for each other. Abraham mourns for Sarah, showing his love for her. He makes burial arrangements for Sarah, fulfilling the value of kvod hamet, honoring the deceased. The Hittites, and particularly Ephron, who sells Abraham a gravesite, comfort him, fulfilling the value of nichum avelim, consoling the mourners. When Abraham sends his servant to find a wife for Isaac, the servant is devotedly obedient, a faithful friend. Rebekah expends great effort to provide water and care for the servant and his camels, demonstrating hospitality and kindness. When the servant brings Rebekah back home to Isaac, we are told that he loved her, the first mention of spousal love in the Torah. And at the end of the portion, when Abraham dies, his estranged sons, Isaac and Ishmael, bury him together, suggesting a reconciliation. Even though there is death and mourning, there is also kindness and comfort and love. We find it in the way these people treat each other. That seems to me to be a pretty good parallel to where we find ourselves and to what the Charlottesville Rabbi suggests. We certainly see and feel hatred, prejudice, and violence in our world. We can't avoid sadness, fear, and anxiety. But we also certainly see goodness and compassion, people supporting and sustaining one another. In this tension between good and evil, it is our responsibility to deliver the verdict by caring about and caring for each other even more. Amen. It is our responsibility. In Hebrew, aleinu. In our liturgy, aleinu envisions a world of humanity united under God's rule. It is our responsibility to build it. We rise as we turn to page 51.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובהי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת et malkeinu efesulato, kakatu bitorato, vidatayom, vidatayom vashivota elevavecha, ki Adonai hu ha-Elohim, Pashamayim imal, V'al ha'aretz mitachat einod, v'ne'emar, v'haya Adonai, l'melech al kol ha'aretz, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, Ushemo echad.
Please be seated. As we prepare for Kaddish, we recall the loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have taken into our hearts with our own. Tonight, our hearts especially go out to Rita and Stan Spiegelman. Their niece, Marika Steer, died yesterday. The funeral is Sunday in New Hampshire. We also particularly remember this week the 11 victims of the shooting at Tree of Life Synagogue. We also particularly remember Muriel Sutton Davis, grandmother of Sarah Parker, for whom we are still in Shloshim, the first 30 days of mourning. And our congregational family remembers with special affection our loved ones whose Yahrzeit will occur this coming week. Celia Bornstein, grandmother of Melissa Feist, Richard Krasnow, brother of Doreen Lipman, Miriam Azer, mother of Norman Azer, Charlotte Boone, mother of Paula Kaczynski, Amy Tavares, sister of Carl Lambrecht, Edna Krasnow, mother of Doreen Lipman, Hy Bennett, grandfather of Carolyn Putterman, Gertrude Slotnick, mother of Richard Slotnick, Edward Goldman, father of Rona Slotnick. If you are remembering someone this evening, we invite you to say that person's name aloud now. Zichronam livracha. May the memories of all our dear ones be a blessing. If you're saying Kaddish in someone's memory tonight, we ask you to rise now. In loving support of the mourners, we rise as a congregation. In gratitude to God for the gift of the lives of their loved ones, those who are in mourning and those remembering someone, say Kaddish on page 52. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayeichon v'yomeichon, uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agalah v'zman kariv imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei dekusha b'richu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, d'amiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya v'chayim, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, and comfort all of the bereaved. And we say, Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. On, I don't remember announcements. Okay, announcements, page 50. Craig, we are you making announcements tonight, Craig? Yeah. Okay.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
Welcome to TCS, where we value innovating education, building community, honoring individuality, drawing meaning from Judaism, and upholding our social responsibility. All of our programming, including the ones I will mention today, reflect those values. Torah study tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. with Rabbi Ken on Zoom. Saturday Havdalah service will be at 7 p.m. on Zoom as well. Rocking Shabbat Friday night at 6:30 p.m. November 12th. An upbeat, exciting musical Shabbat experience for the whole family, featuring a rock band, featuring a new Rockin' Shabbat band member. Details in your weekly email. Reminder, Family Table is sponsored by the Jewish Family Services. Its mission is to alleviate hunger in our community in a way that meets nutritional and spiritual needs. Our temple is committed to collecting 30 cans of tuna fish and 30 cans of vegetarian beans each month. Please remember to bring your cans when you come to the temple. There is a wooden container in the foyer for your canned goods. Check your email for the new November-December newsletter that went out today. Lots of things happening at TCS. Also watch for your weekly emails on Monday. Information and links to all activities are included. Please remember to return your name badges to the drawers in the foyer before you leave the temple. And once again, thank you all for your contributions to the High Holy Day Appeal.
Thank you, Craig. And just to repeat the name of the organization that is spearheading the lawsuit, it is Integrity First for America. Their website is integrityfirstforamerica.org if you're interested in more information or if you would like to support them in their efforts in this lawsuit and others. Page 54, Adon Olam.
Adon Olam, Asher Malach B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra Le'ed Nasa, V'chefto Kol, Azai Melech, Shemo Nikra, Azai Melech, Shemo Nikra, Ve'acharei ככלות הכל לבדו, ימלוך נורא, והוא היה, והוא הווה, והוא יהיה, בתפארה, והוא יהיה, בתפארה, והוא אחד, ואין שני להמשילו, להכבירה בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה, ולא העוז והמשרה, והוא אלי וחי גואלי וצור חבלי בעת צרה, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי מנת כוסי ביום אקרא, מנת כוסי ביום אקרא, בידו הפקיד רוחי בעת אישן בעירה, ועם רוחי גוויעתי אדוני לי ולא יירא, אדוני לי ולא יירא.
We conclude with Kiddush, page 49.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'rata banu, v'shabbat kodsho, v'yahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lemaseh v'reishit. Kihu yom techila lemikrae kodesh, zecher litziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu bacharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol hamim, v'shabbat kodshecha, v'yahava uvratzon, inchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen.
Shabbat shalom, everybody. Those of you on YouTube, please come back to Zoom and join us there. We look forward to schmoozing and wishing each other Shabbat shalom there as well. Shabbat,
Shabbat shalom.
Yeah.